Welcome back to the Funny Thing Is podcast. I am your host, Nicole Birch, where every episode I bring you someone who shares a life-changing event, the medicine they took to get better, and the funniest lesson they learned along the way. Today is no exception. I'm here with my good friend who is a comedian, the creator of the Bass Hole podcast and the live comedy show, also called The Bass. Was it The Bass Hole Show?
Bass Hole, yeah.
It's great. Welcome to the show, Doug Bass.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks
Nicole.
for coming.
It's good seeing you.
I know. I was trying to remember how we met. Zero. I know we both did Groundlings.
I think we met through Groundlings
right?
at some point.
You did it. You did Sunday before me.
I never did Sunday.
You didn't?
No, they voted me out. I was like, I think it was like me and like one other person in my class. Two of us.
This whole time, I thought you did all three Sundays.
Two of us did not get into Sunday in our advanced class, and I was one of them.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
and then
it's horrible.
It was either through. Well, I mean, fuck, who cares?
Yeah.
But it's also. I mean, like at this point, I'm like that was a decade ago. Katie Rose.
Yes, Katie Rose.
So it might have been through that too.
Maybe through that, yeah.
Yeah.
Big Boss, our old sketch group that we had. Maybe that. I don't know.
That's right.
But everyone that was doing Groundlings at that time.
We're all friends together.
Hanging out and doing shows and all that stuff. So yeah.
And so now you have a podcast that's been going for a while.
Yeah, we started it during the pandemic. 2020.
And what's the idea behind it?
So the idea behind it is called Bass Hole. People come on, guests, comedian actors, everyone comes on, and they have to tell a story about a time that they were an asshole in their life.
Right.
Preferably a funny time, but like sometimes it's dark or whatever. But then we pick it apart and we analyze it and we kind of poke fun of it. And we decide, like, you know, we were like, are you an asshole in that story or are you not? Like, let's see if it's asshole worthy, you know?
Yeah, that's kind of like, similar to this show where it's like you share a life-changing event and sometimes it's dark. But then we always find the comedy.
Right. You have to, exactly. Like you have to find the comedy out of it. And then we also do the live show at the Hollywood Improv where comics, they do a short set and then they tell an asshole story on stage in front of people. And then we have the judging panel that decides, like, I think it was an asshole story. And then we decide who the biggest asshole or bass hole of the night was.
I love that. Yeah, so the set isn't them sharing their asshole story. It's separate.
They do like a 3 to 4 minute regular set and then they get a cue and then they have to end with an asshole story.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah. Okay. That's great. I have to come see that.
It's a lot of fun. I'll have you on it.
Oh, I'd love it. I'd love it. I have so many asshole stories. Okay. So for this one, what is a life-changing event that you'd like to share?
Okay. So the life-changing event that I'd like to share is when I discovered that my ex-wife, was selling pornographic videos on OnlyFans. Yeah.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay. I have so many questions.
Yeah. Me too.
Okay. How long were you married?
So I was married about 6 years almost.
Okay.
We were together like maybe 7.5.
And when did you find out in that timeline?
I found out during the pandemic, it was right on Thanksgiving, kind of during that year. I think it was 2021. Yeah, Thanksgiving. Okay. 2021. Yeah, I found out.
How?
So I'll back up a little
Please
bit.
Give me all of it.
Because I do want to be honest on this show,
yes.
Of course, for you and your viewers.
Yes.
So yeah, I was married about 6.5 years or whatever, and I we always had a great relationship, very strong in the beginning. We're always very open-minded, both of us. So I'd say halfway through the marriage, we were like, oh, maybe we can try like an open marriage situation.
Okay.
We had dabbled in going to like a lifestyle party back in the day or whatever. And like,
can I ask a question?
Yes.
Were you guys on Tinder?
We met on Tinder. That's how we met.
But you didn't ever go on.
We met on Tinder initially, the two of us.
Yeah.
And then when we were like, oh, let's open the thing. Maybe.
I think I saw you guys.
Oh, probably.
For sure.
On Tinder.
I might have swiped right.
Yeah, you might have. Yeah. Yeah.
If you guys didn't pick me, I feel very upset about it.
I wasn't actively on it. We were on an app called Field too, which was kind of like for like couples to like meet other like, people or couples.
Because now I'm remembering that and I'm like, wait, I think I saw you guys.
Yeah,
and I was like,
probably.
Is Doug single and on this? But then it said,
well,
and
there
then
were
you
people
read
that
it.
would also be like, hey, your wife is on Tinder. And I'd be like, I know.
You're like, I'm in the picture too. It's fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So right, we had kind of we were like, let's try an open thing, but there were like very specific rules to it. It was like, don't take advantage of the situation. Don't get emotionally involved with someone.
Right.
She traveled for work a lot. I would travel here and there. It's like if something happened, you're at a bar or something, it's like, all right, maybe,
Yeah.
But like, don't get like, it's not a priority. You know what I mean? Like,
don't get carried away.
And she always wanted like a don't ask, don't tell situation.
Okay.
I kind of was like, well, I'd like to know a little bit or whatever, but like we never really agreed on that entirely, but like we just went with it. And then like we didn't do it we stopped doing it. And then like, we would travel. We went on a lot of vacations together and we had a lot of fun and everything. And then I'd say like during the pandemic, she started drinking a lot and doing, cocaine and, other stuff or whatever. There's a lot of lying and like, gaslighting that started happening here and there.
Okay.
And, like everyone during the pandemic, you had a situation where you were either trapped with your loved one, or you were alone, or you ended up moving in with someone that you just started dating. All these crazy, life-changing kind of things that happened.
Right.
So we started going to couples therapy during the pandemic.
Smart.
On Zoom, and it didn't go that well.
Okay.
She would show up at the Zoom meeting with a glass of wine, and I'd be like, I don't think you're supposed to be drinking during the therapy. And she'd be like, what do you mean? It's 5:00, whatever. I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, if we were going into his office, you wouldn't bring a bottle of wine, would you? And she'd be like, well, maybe I'd bring a roadie, and it's like, all right, she's joking, but she wasn't joking, but like, who knows? But anyway, the alcohol started getting, worse, more drinking. And she went on a bender Thanksgiving week that week. Like it was like 3 days. She was out like till 3 a.m. drinking, like, not coming home late. I had to go pick her up from like a corner in Hollywood where she's like wasted.
Oh no. Okay.
She rented a car. She lost the car key, all this stuff or whatever. And like before that, she had kind of told me, like, she's like, I didn't even know what OnlyFans was. And
because that's about when it started to get
started.
some
I didn't know.
traction,
I didn't really know what it was. And she's like, oh, I opened like an OnlyFans thing. She told me, and I was like, what is it? She's like, I'm just gonna put like, like lingerie photos up, and it's like, people like tip me or whatever.
Okay.
And I was like, all right. I was like, why do you want to do that? She's like, I don't know. She's like, I've been taking like self photos with my phone, and I feel pretty or whatever,
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, and like I looked at like one or two, and it was just like photos of her in like lingerie or whatever. And I was like, all right, whatever. Like I didn't really think much about it,
Right.
And then we all get busy and things start going on.
And also when OnlyFans started, I remember like there were comedians. They were like trying to get comedians to be on OnlyFans.
now it's like mainstream, like comedy and like
it's everything,
porn and like models. Like everyone has it. Like you almost need like your podcast on OnlyFans now to do anything, out there or whatever. So it's changed over the past couple of years.
Right.
But when it first came out, I had no idea what it was, and she was on there, and then like when the drinking started getting worse and stuff, and she wasn't coming home, and like she was just out of control.
Right.
I started like putting 2 and 2 together, and I was like, what is going on? Like the therapy wasn't going well. She was like acting erratic behavior, just like off the wall. And I was like, I remembered the OnlyFans thing, like maybe like 2 months after she had told me about it. And like Thanksgiving week, I went on to OnlyFans on her profile. I made a fake profile up of myself.
So
like,
you could,
called the guy Neil, and he was like an accountant from Ohio or something. And I went on and I found her and I started messaging her, and she would reply back and be like, hey Neil, like, hey baby, like, what's up, and are you interested in, purchasing some content? And I'd be like, okay, yeah, like, why not, and like, and I'm messaging with her, and I'm like, I'm thinking maybe I'm going to buy like some lingerie or just chat with her,
right,
and you tip her. Like, that's what I thought it was.
Right.
And then
were you already bothered at the fact that she was engaging with you at all, or did that?
Yeah,
okay,
a little bit, because like I said, we had very specific rules for the open thing, you know, and selling porn online was not one. Was not negotiated. I mean, I didn't even think that would you would have to put that on the rules sheet.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right,
that's the last thing that would come to my mind. So
was she working at the time?
She, she was working. She was working remotely.
Did she need money? Was she?
No, she made a very good living. She made like, around like $150 a year, probably,
okay,
doing very well.
Okay,
no need for supplemental income, really.
Right.
But she also had this thing where it's like, oh, we always got to make money.
Okay.
So like, there was that sickness as well. It's
yeah.
But so when I'm talking to her on this app or whatever, she sends me a menu of like things that I could buy from her.
Uh-huh.
And it was like, for $20, you can buy a nude photo or whatever. For $30, I'll send you a blowjob video. For $50, I'll send you, intercourse or whatever. Like there were like all these things, right? And like part of me was like $50, $20. I was like, and I started doing more research on OnlyFans, and like some of these women are making like, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And I'm like, and you're selling like blowjob videos for $25? I'm like, what is
Who's she
going
giving
on?
the blowjobs to?
So
I'm sorry, I've got so many. Okay,
I know.
keep
So
going.
I decide to, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna act as Neil on this thing, and I'm like, do I buy some of this stuff? Do I try it? And I'm like, all right, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'd love to buy, give me the blowjob video or whatever, and then I have the credit card hooked up to the thing, and I buy it, whatever. And then like, I don't know, like a couple minutes later, like a video is sent to you through the app. And I'm like, all right, am I gonna sit here and watch this? And like, and then I remember I bought like 2 or 3 things. Or whatever. Bought 2 or 3 things. And then I remember I ordered like Uber Eats or something. And I got like ramen, and I'm like sitting there like at my desk, and like the house that we were living in at the time, I'm like, I'm like facing the door, like kind of like someone would come in and like my computer would be behind the door or whatever.
Right.
So you can't see my screen or whatever.
Right.
And like, I remember my wife was home at the time, and like, she's like, what's going on? What are you doing? I'm like, just working on some editing stuff or whatever. And I'm like, literally have this stuff open in front of my computer. And I'm like,
gonna throw up.
And then, she'd go in the next room, and like I would message again as Neil, and she would reply back on her phone or whatever. Like we're literally messaging in the same house, me as this fake character and her as, they're doing this OnlyFans shit. So
this is a scene out of a fucking movie,
it's crazy,
dude.
It's crazy. So I buy a couple things. Then she goes out or something like that. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch this stuff. And I watch it, and it's full blown pornographic videos that she just sold me on OnlyFans. Video of her having oral sex with a guy, a couple of those. And then I bought a couple of the intercourse ones, full on intercourse with guys, no condoms, not safe at all. Then I bought like, there was like an orgy one.
Where's the time? Where's the time? She's making 150,000. Where's the time?
She would work remotely. This was during pandemic. She didn't have to go to an office. She went to like, I remember she would go to festivals with a couple of her friends, like in Texas or Memphis or something like that. I don't know. She went to some of these festivals, and like, she'd be like, oh, it's just a music festival, and like they dress up with the glitter and stuff. And I know like
a rave kind of.
Yeah. And raves. And I'm like, all right, like I couldn't leave. I couldn't go on. Like I would travel as much as I could with her, but like I also had like a job that like I have to stay here for.
Right.
So I'm not remote. I can't just like leave whenever I want. Plus we got dogs and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And responsibilities, adult stuff.
Yeah.
So she would go to these things and work trips, and she went to Mexico, and I know all this stuff happened, but then I bought a video where it was in our living room at the house we were living in, and she's blowing some guy in our living room in the Lazy Boy. So I'm like, oh, there's our house. There's our house. I'm like, and so I'm watching all this stuff.
Is this all in like a 1-day period? This was
like over the course of like 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
And
around Thanksgiving.
And I remember like I had a house sitting job. And then I saw like she was helping me house sit, and I remember she had photos of her, like nude photos of herself on her OnlyFans in the house that we were sitting at. And there's like pictures behind her of like the family, and I'm like, I'm like, are you an idiot? It's like, it's just crazy stuff like that. And then we started getting more personal on the thing. She's like, I can make you a personalized video for $100, where I'll yell out your name. With my model or whoever it is, so I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta buy that. So then I buy this one where I'm like, she's supposed to yell out the name Neil during the during the sex, and then it took like maybe 3 or 4 days, and like she sent it back, and like she was like blowing this guy saying like, oh, Neil, and I was like, I just wanted to hear her say the name Neil because it's kind of ridiculous. So she's doing that. I bought the personalized one, and so I have all this stuff, and I'm just like, all right.
And you're also paying for this.
And I'm also paying for it, which I joke in my stand-up that I've used her credit card, but it was mine, but whatever. It's funnier that way. But then Thanksgiving comes, and she is totally wrecked on Thanksgiving. Like, she invited our friends up from Orange County. We're having Thanksgiving at our friend's house in West Hollywood. They drive all the way up from Orange County. She's a mess. Like, I'm like, you can't go to Thanksgiving, you know, like you can't do it. So like, so then like, then we go to Thanksgiving. She like sobers up kind of. And then that day, that Thanksgiving, she decided to go to, she's like, I got to go to rehab. I got to go to rehab. She starts admitting like, I have a drinking problem. I'm like, yeah, you do, you know, all this stuff. And then the next day, the day of Thanksgiving, she goes to her first AA meeting. And then she becomes addicted to AA meetings. She's a social butterfly who replaced alcohol with AA meetings. And she has said that she has been sober since that day, that first day that she has gone to the AA meetings. She would go to like 3 AA meetings in a day, like 5 or 6 days a week.
Yeah.
And then she started making all these friends through AA.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I've never been to AA, but like, I don't have that problem. But, you know, it was kind of like she started replacing the alcohol with this social AA friends. Mm-hmm. And she was setting up like trips and like meetings and, you know, like, let's do this, let's have mocktails. Let's, you know, it was all like, I'm not saying that she wasn't like getting help through her own needs or whatever, but she was immediately like all these new AA people were like showing up and like, you know, and at that point after Thanksgiving, that's when I decided, I told her, I'm like, we have to separate. I didn't know if I wanted to get divorced yet.
And she still didn't know that you knew.
I never told her. I never told her that I knew, which was the interesting.
Even today?
No, today I told her. But
okay.
like for a very long time, I didn't tell her that I knew about this. There were a couple reasons. One, I have a dog business, and I had all these holiday reservations coming for Christmas and stuff like that. So I needed the house to run my business.
Right.
I couldn't just cancel all that. It was a lot of money, and then also my business would be going all over the place. So,
right.
So I was like, I have to fake Christmas with her, and then get through that, and then move out at some point. Mm-hmm. So I brought it up, like after Thanksgiving, like, I think we should separate. Or I kind of just started being cold to her. I stopped talking to her. I was in my own world. She'd be like, what's wrong? Like we're going to get the tree next week. Like we did the Christmas tree. Like, let's do that. Like, and then she started like making up for like something was weird, you know, like I wasn't myself around her. I wasn't acting the same. I was like giving her like cold shoulder. Mm-hmm. And she was like reaching out, like, what do you like? What, like, I don't understand. Like, why aren't you talking to me? Like, right. I can't live like this, you know? And then finally she's like, fine, we'll just get a divorce. Like, I don't know what you're thinking, you know? And then like, I finally just said like, I need to separate from you, like after the holidays. Like I just need to move out. Like I don't even, if it's for 6 months, I don't know, but like we really need to like work on ourselves or like figure out what's going on, right. You know? And at that point, I didn't know if I wanted to get divorced because one, I do love this person still, mm-hmm. and it's a weird thing. And she comes public with her alcohol problem to her family, her friends, everyone. She goes on social media, I'm an alcoholic, I have this problem, blah, 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 you know, and then everyone is like pouring their support towards her, like, oh, good for you, congratulations.
And you know this other side.
You know, and like her parents would call me and be like, you know, you should go to Al-Anon or like the, you know,
I've done
the friend one, and like, you really need to help her during this time of need and whatever. And I'm just like, fuck. I'm like, yeah, she has an alcohol problem, but she also has this sex, you know, problem or addiction, social awareness problem, you know, very needy, needs to be looked at, whatever it is. I don't know. And it's like, part of me wants to be like if I tell like her family or parents or friends, like, oh, did you know that your daughter is selling porn online? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, like I can't do that. I can't tell them that, you know, even though like everyone's like, oh, she's an alcoholic, help her. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But like, she's also crazy, you know, like this is a whole other thing. Yeah. So it's like, I'm the only person that knows these two things. And, you know, everyone else is helping her with alcohol, proud of her, all this shit. And I'm just like, this is insane. I got, you know, I tell a couple close friends what's going on, and, you know, obviously my friends are on my side and all this stuff. So after Christmas, I get through Christmas, whatever. And, you know, we decide we're going to move out of the house that we're in. And I start moving out or whatever. She's like, I'm like, she's going to Mexico, like the day after we move, the day that we're moving out of the house or whatever. You know, we clean the house, we get all our stuff out of there. She leaves most of her stuff there. and like goes on this trip to Mexico. She's like, I have this Mexico trip planned. Like it's like she gets it frantic. Like I don't have enough time to do all this stuff.
Like
blah, blah, blah.
very manic energy.
It's very manic, very crazy. Like I don't have time to do this, but she had time to go to like 10 and AA meetings like that week. And it's like she prioritized all that stuff rather than like cleaning the house or getting her stuff into her storage unit or whatever, like all this stuff. So she left, and then like literally left like a lot of the stuff that I had to end up dealing with just to get out of the damn lease of the house or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember I moved out of that house. It was my birthday week. It was literally like, I think on my birthday, like I was like, she had left, the car had driven away, and I'm sitting there like, she left me like a gift and like cupcakes, and I'm sitting there eating the cupcake on the steps of this empty house.
Please write.
And I'm just like, well, I think I did a post like sometimes your birthday is just sitting on an empty staircase, alone or something like that.
Oh my God.
And it was horrible. I was like, I was really upset and sad, and it was very detrimental to me at the time. And it was a weird time. And then she came back from the trip, and I was getting a new place at the time. I was like in between places and moving. And I remember it was such a weird space because she came back, she moved into her friend's bachelor apartment. They subletted it or something like that. So she was staying in one end of West Hollywood. I was staying at a client's house. I don't work for her anymore, but I was staying at Natalie Portman's guest house, watching her dogs for like 3 weeks or whatever.
I mean, if you're going to stay at a guest house, it should be
so
Natalie
it was
Portman's.
Crazy. It was weird. It was like I didn't have like a permanent place yet, but then I'm staying at Natalie Portman's guest house. I'm getting separated from my wife. Like it was just a weird time. Like you couldn't make this up. And it was like, then I finally got an apartment. I moved into it, and she lived in LA for a while, and like we talked back and forth. I still never told her about the porn. I never told her I bought the porn, right? And like I was like, she's like, if we're gonna get a divorce, you're not getting anything, blah blah blah, they're very hostile. Like, and I'm just like, why don't we talk? Like, because I was still like, maybe we can work through it. Maybe we can get back together if I approach her with it, whatever.
Because maybe that was tied into her alcoholism. Like,
I was like, I know she needs help, and then she became sober, and I was like, good, I'm glad you're sober. Like I don't know if she was being true about that because she's lied about a lot of other things. So I don't know how true that was, but I believe that she was. And then I think like maybe 3 or 4 months after I moved out, like we finally had brunch together, and I remember that's when I approached her about the OnlyFans, and I literally sat down at the restaurant we're at, and I was like, I know you were selling porn on OnlyFans. Then she's like, what do you mean? Like, she kind of like was like, and then I'm like, well, I bought it. I was on, I had an account. I'm Neil, and then she just was kind of like, she's like, all right. She's like, well, I'm sorry you had to see that, and then she like immediately kind of like brushed it off by saying like, she's like, wow. She's like, I ended up making like $10,000. She's like, it's not chump change, not too bad, right? Or something like that. She said. And then I was kind of like, first of all, yeah, that's
we're
hard.
Sitting here going
first
through
of all,
a divorce.
like business wise, that's actually horrible. I was like, compared to the research I've done on these OnlyFans girls and models, like these girls are making hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I was like, if you were making hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe I'd tip my hat and be like, all right, maybe let's start a business. I don't know, And the other thing that pissed me off, it was like, she never even came to me and like, look, I'm open-minded. I do video production. I know how to edit, like film, all this stuff, like you never.
And a lot of people that do OnlyFans, they have their partner help them.
Right. Yeah. And you never came to me being like, hey, would this be something you're interested in doing? Right. I have a sexual fantasy of doing this or whatever, like, whatever. Like I was never an option, like to be a partner, like, whatever. And it's like, and if we had done it right, like, we could be millionaire by now. I don't know. But it's like, that was never brought to me, And then when
it was like an extra.
And when I watched the videos too, like I was critiquing them from like a video. I was like, the lighting's horrible. This shot's horrible. Like I could have done better. But I was very early on, I was trying to like, integrate the humor into this because I knew at some point, not when it happened, but I knew at some point, like it's going to be funny. It's going to be okay. Right. It's going to be funny.
That. Yeah.
And I can't wait to get to that point where it's funny and I can talk about it or whatever.
Yeah.
so, at the brunch, I mentioned it, and she was like, and I remember like her being like, I was like, what, like, why did you need to do this? I'm like, you make $150,000 a year at your job. Like, what did you need OnlyFans for? And like her response was like, it's brunch money. Brunch money. I was like, brunch money. I'm like for her to go out and like, it was like for her to go on a trip, for her to pay for like a plane ticket to go somewhere. She'd always be very weird about like she'd want to travel and do all this stuff, and then she'd be very weird about like money, like even though she made plenty and like I make good money too, whatever. And it was always like, well, if this guy's gonna give me $800 to show my tits to him or blow him or whatever, it's like, oh, that's gonna pay for the hotel for the week. I don't have to dip into this other fun. It's like a sickness. It's a sickness.
Yeah.
It's a weird sickness.
It's a weird way to look at money.
So there was a lot of that going on, and then we had the brunch, and then I remember she she tore her Achilles or whatever, skiing or something like that, and then eventually like we kind of just started arguing more, and she was gonna move away out of LA, and I was like, okay, that's probably, and then that's when I started to realize like, all right, like there was still part of me that was like, maybe we can work through this, because like throughout those months of leaving, I still was in love with her. It was like, it was definitely difficult. And I was hoping that she would do a Hail Mary, like she like show me that you want this to work, show up at my doorstep crying, like with like, like, let's get back into therapy, like, the moment in the movie where like, they come back running back or whatever, and that never happened. So I was like, okay, I left it up to her. Like I wasn't going to go beg to try to fix this after what I had gone through.
Right.
So I left that up to her, and she never did it. So that answered a lot of things for me. That answered a lot of questions that I had, whether this was going to work or, fix it or whatever. So then when she moved away, we moved on, and, it was a long healing process. And, as of today, I'm still dealing with some of the legal stuff or whatever.
Oh, the legal stuff.
Well,
okay.
just like the finalizing the divorce. signing the paper.
How long ago was it?
It took me about a year I filed for divorce. So it took me a year to do it.
Okay.
Part of me was like, I'm going to do it the next day as soon as I found out. There's those people that can go do that. I couldn't do that. I was like, because I still had a glimpse of hope.
Right.
So it took me a full year to actually be like, all right, I'm gonna hire a lawyer and file and get the paperwork together or whatever. So I did all that while she had moved away at that point. And then it's been almost 3 years now. So Thanksgiving's next week as we're recording this or whatever. So so it's been almost 3 years now. I feel like it's almost wrapping up, but right now, today is like the first time I have felt comfortable talking about it in a recording setting.
Right.
I've written stand-up stuff about it. I've done it on stage here and there. I haven't released any clips about it or whatever. And on my own podcast as well, like I plan on talking about it as well. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I mean, I know I've been talking a long time, but
I mean, that's a lot.
Sorry, I know. It's a long story.
You told me, you were like, oh, there's something I want to share. And then I was like, okay, well, just make sure, let me know 48 hours so I can do some research, which I did. And when you sent it to me, and we've known each other for a long time, and I'd met her quite a few times, and I was like, what? Because I knew she got sober. Now, I will say this. The research I did, I saw her on your podcast, and I saw her on another podcast when she was sober. I think she was like a little over a year sober. And if you put this podcast next to that podcast, they tell very different stories.
Very different stories.
I will say my husband was actually in and out of the room when I was listening to the research. And I was like, it's the thing with, I did Al-Anon for a little bit because I have alcoholics in my family. And the thing about the 12-step program, and it helps a lot of people, and this isn't anything bad about that. My thing is, I know people who do the steps over and over and over again. And I've sat in meetings where there's a woman who's been doing it for 60 years.
Yeah.
She's like in her 80s, and she's still angry at her father. And I don't think doing the same amends over and over and over again, I think that's a different addiction.
Well, that's the interesting thing. Again, like I don't know much about AA, but I did try to go to a couple Al-Anon meetings when it happened. When it first happened, I was like, yeah, all right, I will try to go. and it was during pandemic. So like I would show up at a couple and then they weren't happening. And then it was online and then they were hard to find
Oh,
during that time. It
yeah.
was like, it was
I
not
think they're
like,
hard to find in general.
yeah.
'Cause
And it was like,
yeah.
I ended up going to one and it was like all men or whatever. And I was like, oh, this is interesting or whatever, but I never got to speak or whatever, you know? So I just went to like two, I think. And then I was like, and then part of me was like, no, like, why am I going to waste my time going to this? Like, this is a person that
Right.
obviously didn't care about my feelings, you know,
Right.
like during this whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, and in regards to like her filming the videos, like her having, you know, doing all this with like no condoms, unsafe, like that's risking my health. Like I would say, like that's the most fucked up part about it. I would say,
Yeah.
like filming it and then putting it out there like that. You know, it's like I would have rather done regulated porn where like you're being tested every day and like
Right.
there's regulations and all this stuff, you know?
Right.
So like that's just crazy. And like in the AA stuff, the steps, yeah, the what is it when the amends,
Mhm. I was going to ask you, has she called you? Because that,
no. So she has sent letters to several of our mutual friends or like that are still friends with me or whatever. They have reached out to me and been like, hey, by the way, I got an amends letter from your wife. You know, I don't think I'm going to respond to it, you know. And then like I talked to like two or three of the people that got the same letter and it was copy and paste pretty much. And like part of me is like, I don't really think she knows what she is sorry for,
yeah.
you know. I don't think she's completed all the steps. I don't, you know, like there was this rush of going to these meetings, like, you know, 10 a week or whatever.
Yeah.
And
She said that on that podcast.
that
She
was-
went like a lot.
Yeah, and that was to fulfill that was to replace the drinking and the
Right.
drugs or whatever, you know.
Right.
That was the social gap that she needed.
Right. Yeah. And
because-
even when we were listening to the one podcast she was on, it was, and I think a lot of people do this, and I think especially early on in sobriety, it's, what is it? You're white knuckling it, right? And then there's something called the pink cloud, I think, where you're like, everything's great, I'm totally sober now, but it's like delusion.
Oh yeah, and those were social media posts. Like she'd be like 20 days sober, and it's like, all right, come on, 20 days. Like people give up, you know, dry January. Like they're not posting like, oh my god, I went a month without
And
drinking.
it is her, it, like you said, it is kind of her, it's her new personality,
Right.
and it's her thing. And like I understand that to like maybe at the beginning,
Sure.
but there's also, she goes on to say, like, I always needed friends around me. I always needed my husband around me. I always needed that.
She needed an acknowledgement.
She needed that. And then it's like, but then you say you're going to this many meetings a day. You don't see the correlation.
Mhm.
Like that's.
Well, there was time like when she was going to all those meetings as well, and we were, you know, we knew we were separated or whatever. Like I remember like I was out working or whatever, and she'd be like, what time are you coming home? Because I have to do this or whatever. And I'd be like, I'll be home this time or whatever. And then I came home early, and then like there's a guy there in our bed. And I like, she had candles lit up and everything. And I was like, oh, I'm like, part of me at that time was like, this is that moment where you like,
This is after she was sober.
this is while she was in the meetings. Yes, she was sober. This is like, she's probably like 3 weeks in sober, but she was going to AA, and now she's replacing the alcohol with random sex as well with another addict that's in AA, because this guy was in AA, I'm guessing that's where they met or whatever. So I came home and I'm like, I'm like, this is like the moment out of like a movie, like where like you can walk in on your spouse or whatever and catch them in the act, even though I know we've kind of been like, all right, we're going to separate or whatever. And I remember I started moving stuff out of the house, and like I was taking the bed, and I was like, I want the bed like out of the house now.
Yeah.
She'd be like, well, where am I going to sleep? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, because we had like a really nice West Elm bar or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to take the bar. And she's like, I bought that bar. I'm like, you're an alcoholic. What do you need a bar for? And she's like, what if I entertain? You know? And I'm like, well, entertain some other way. I was like, so I'm like, then I want the bed. But I remember walking in, I literally was like, all right, what am I going to say when I open this bedroom door and catch them in there? And I literally was like, I remember I just like walked in and I was like, you keep the bed, I'll take the bar. I was like, by the way, she has herpes, even though she didn't. But like, I was like, I'm gonna say something fucked up, whatever. Like, this is my moment. This is my moment that I'm never gonna have again.
This is my moment.
Yeah. So I remember that happened, but that was towards the end of us getting out of the moving out and all that stuff. But yeah, the amends thing, you know, I never got a sorry yet. You know,
Right.
I never got an amends. And I'm the one person I believe that knows her the best in her life. Like, I don't even think her mother knows her well enough, because there were things that she would tell her mom and they'd be like, what? Like, I didn't know this happened. Or, you know, like, you know, so it's like, out of, yeah, I mean, even some of her friends, I'm just like, you have no idea. Like, I lived with her for 6, 7 years. It's like, I'm the one that
You see
knows.
the ugly. You see
Yeah,
all
I
the
see
ends.
the, I
Yeah.
see the
My
ugly.
husband sees sides of me that like,
And like and it's like I had to get out of that. And it was like a lot of people would not get out of that situation. They would stay, they'd deal with it, they'd take,
let it
the
happen.
gaslighting, the narcissistic things, they just let them steamroll over the person. So that was the heart of just escaping that, changing your life, leaving your marriage, leaving the life that you loved or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, the amends, like I don't know the person she is now. I don't know sober blank.
Yeah.
That's her name now, but
Blank.
like
Yep.
I don't know who that person is from the day
When was the last time you talked to her?
through email. Like I talked to her, like, because we're still dealing with some stuff, but
Okay.
but like on the phone, I don't know. It's been probably over a year and a half or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
How do you feel talking about it?
this is good. I mean, it's been like, I mean, it's very therapeutic, obviously. It's at a point where I think it's funny now.
Yeah.
There's still things that like jab you in the side where you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that, almost, like, because before coming in here, like, I wrote down like bullet points. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to cover this and that and this, and
Did you get them all?
I think so. I think I did. Yeah. The other thing, the one other thing is that she shares a birthday with Donald Trump. So I was like, that makes sense. That checks out.
Okay. How are you going to feel when she sees this?
I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm guessing she will.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like I'm going to send it to her, but
right.
I mean, I could, but
right.
I don't know. I mean,
I think
like,
we're friends on Facebook.
Oh yeah. She'll probably
if she'll see a clip,
she'll see it, and and as I talk about it more, and I released it on my own podcast when I talk about it on my show, and then stand up clips or whatever. It's like it's something I'm going to talk about and incorporate into my world, my comedy, my act here and there. So it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like, if people see it and they want to, be like, that didn't happen, it's like, or like say it's false or whatever,
right.
That's fine. But, I still own all the videos and we can have a screening if we want. Not that I would do that. But.
I think it's interesting because it's one of those things where you're like, and you do podcasts all the time. So it's like, you don't want to defame the person, but it's also, as a comedian and as a human being, it's also important to tell your side of the story.
Yeah.
Because I think as an outsider, and like we said, we haven't seen each other since before the pandemic. I knew there was a divorce. I knew she got sober. Other than that, I didn't know. I speculated that either you guys got divorced and she got sober, or she got sober and you didn't like it, so then you got divorced. I mean, that's usually like the pattern,
and that's interesting that you say that, because like I've never really thought of it like that. Like, it's like, yeah, all right. So like everyone lives a part of their life on social media or whatever. So what is presented online on social media is that she got sober and we got a divorce. I haven't really commented on any of it on social media yet.
Yeah.
Like, I've put up like maybe a meme about divorce or something like that. But like, I don't think I've announced like, hey, I'm divorced. I'm getting divorced from so-and-so.
Right.
I'm moving on. This is what's happened. Like, I never updated, like, not that anyone gives a shit, because I'm no one, but like, whatever. It's like, it's like my friends and family.
But your friends and family.
But like, I never really announced it, really, and it's like, I think I didn't announce it because I have the reasons why it happened.
Right.
And she's presented her thing, and like, I'm just starting to present my thing. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've waited a while.
I've waited a while. I think it's, I feel like in a good place to like put it out there a little bit,
What would you say, because we're wrapping up,
Yeah.
what would you say your medicine has been? Like, how are you now? Like, are you ready to be in a relationship?
I mean, I think so. I mean, I don't know if I want one right now, but like, I think I'm ready. I mean, yeah, I definitely was not, like, when it first happened, and I know she jumped into a new relationship immediately when she moved to wherever, and it's another sober person, which is good,
Right.
But she didn't waste any time, really. So part of me was like, all right, well,
Yeah, I think there's two kinds of people. The people that can't be alone, and then
she
the
can't.
people
Yeah,
that
she
need
needs
to
the
like
attention. She can't be alone. She's always kind of been with someone.
somebody.
I feel like
Yeah.
yeah. And the medicine, I'd say, lots of therapy at the beginning.
Mhm.
Comedy, podcasting. Just the other thing is, when it first happened, I was working 7 days a week, 4 different jobs. So for a year and a half, I did that.
That kept you busy.
I did that for a year and a half, and I was like, this is insane, the schedule. But I was like, all this work was coming my way, all these opportunities, and I was like, some of them I had manifested and they had happened, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it like for a year, and I was so tired, but like I was like, I don't want to be sitting at home depressed
And
or
thinking
go
about
out
it.
drinking or whatever, whatever. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, let me just work. Let me do it for a year and a half, and I worked nonstop, and it was a good distraction at the time. So
Yeah.
those are the good medicines, I would say. Yeah.
What is the funniest lesson that you've learned? I mean, like, what? This is such a crazy story.
I mean, there's so many funny lessons, I'd say, but I'd say the ultimate one that comes out of this is don't marry the crazy hot girl with red flags.
Okay. Okay. That's pretty good.
Have fun with them, but double think that choice.
Double think the marriage.
I don't regret getting married to her. Because we did have some great times.
Dude, and you guys, like, I thought you guys were, I thought you guys were great.
We were great, and I think we could have been.
Yeah.
But she's not a great communicator
Mm-hmm.
as much as she is for her professional work or whatever. But like at the time, she was not a good communicator with me at all. And that's ultimately, I think, what ruined the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
How do you feel? Anything else you want to add?
I don't know. Those are the people that know her who are watching this. You have your own thoughts on it, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, I just want to preface this, like, if you held up the two, because what I saw, I was like, oh, and not that this isn't true, but that she's sober and on her own journey. And like, this is just a lesson that when you see two people, especially even if it's public and online and stuff, you really have no idea.
You have no idea.
Because I would have had zero inkling.
Right.
And all my assumptions were, like I said, she got sober, you got divorced, she got sober, one of the two. And I was like, oh,
which both happened.
But it's also like there's so many layers.
There's so many layers, so many things. And like for her to, it's like, I would have given it to her like, hey, I'm an alcoholic and I'm getting sober and I'm getting divorced. By the way, I also did this. I sold porn online against my husband's knowledge, and it kind of ruined things.
Yeah.
So if you copped up to all that stuff, I'd be like, yeah. I'm like, thank you for putting it out there.
Yeah.
Which she won't do, but like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Because that's my experience. And I'm the only one that went through that experience during this whole thing.
Right.
And I think I have every right to talk about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What was it? Somebody, my favorite quote was, if you wanted somebody to, I guess it's a writing quote. So if you wanted somebody to write warmly about you, you should have behaved better.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
It's brutal. That's interesting. Well, I'll have her on the podcast next week.
Can't wait.
So that'll be great.
Yeah. Perfect.
Where can people find you? Can you imagine?
Please, they can find me on Instagram at Doug Basshole. The podcast is at Basshole Show. Go to bassholeshow.com. They can subscribe to the podcast. They can go to the Hollywood Improv to see the live show.
Great.
All that good stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Follow us. Yeah.
Awesome. And that concludes this episode. Continue to follow us on @The Funny Thing Is Podcast or @Nicole Birch Comedy, and we'll see you again next week. Take care.